And how do people usually react when they're in a family constellation?
Well, there's two aspects to it. The client oftentimes just sits in the circle and watches.
Oh, okay.
And then see, say the father and the mother or their sibling or their child or their aborted child, whatever. You have representatives out in the room, right. And those are just people, and just anyone can do it. And the representative just stands there, and because they're in this field of energy that's been set up by the standing there, they have these knowings and movements. Sometimes people will burst into tears. Sometimes a person will fall to the ground because the forces don't allow them to stand. Sometimes the representative will feel so much love that they're overwhelmed and they start crying. I mean, it can be very dramatic. Maybe they don't feel anything.
My goodness.
But the representative can have a wonderful experience. I always loved being a representative when I was studying this work. And one of the only really sad thing about facilitating is I don't get to be a representative anymore, because standing in someone else's shoes for a half hour or 40 minutes and experiencing their life experience, I mean, it's an experience. It's not an intellectual thing, and it's not role playing. Eventually, we try to bring the client into the constellation, and then try to heal some of these bonds and bring some new light in how to bring love into a very difficult relationship or painful past. And we allow the client to step into this new space so that they can regain the way they carry themselves in life. Because many times we don't, on an unconscious level, don't want to be better than our parents.
Right.
I mean, we think we do, we think we are, and that's the posture of an adolescent or maybe an adult, but the child secretly never wants to do better. And so what we really need to heal the mother and father. And this is with everybody unconditionally loves their mother and father, no matter what their parents were like as people. They may have been very compromised as people, but the bond of the infant that took life from these two people is unconditional love. And there's a terrible consequence when the parent doesn't match the way they treat the child or the way they are in life, doesn't match the gift that they were given.
That's very interesting. And as you were describing this, I get the sense that the participants actually walk into the energy field, of the parents or of the ancestors, and that's how they're allowed to feel these emotions.
Yes, they literally walk in and they stand in service of this field.
Oh, what a powerful gift!
Yeah, it's the most amazing thing to watch and to experience. A Greek tragedy is when the hero does all the right things and gets all the wrong response. Right. And this is really the family. Everyone wants to do the best they can. And whatever they do ends up falling apart, or they get sick anyway, or I'll give you an example that's current in the news. Steve Jobs just passed away, and when he was 23, he fathered a daughter out of wedlock, and did not marry the mother, and that's a fact that's known. But it turns out that he was also adopted, and his parents gave birth to him when he was 23, when they were 23.
Oh, what an interesting example. Yes.
This shows how unconscious loyalty he may have judgments towards, and he didn't know his parents then, or his birth parents. So this is just unconscious loyalty to be like our parents, how strong that is.
And it explains some of
that happens so many times.
And it explains some of the repeated patterns that go through a family for generations.
Yes, and of course, good things come through families as well. I mean, artists come in families, and brilliant people, and poverty goes in families. Many things pass down.
Could you explain to us some of the issues that people bring up during a family constellation?
Sure. I mean, you can deal with any life issue or any health issue. Just get as an example, say a person is anorexic, a child is anorexic. Now, Hellinger has made observations on the dynamics of certain situations. Anyone that's anorexic doesn't necessarily have these issues, but oftentimes what the child is saying, usually it's a young girl, what she's saying in her soul is, I'll disappear, Dad, so that you won't.
Oh,
because on a subtle level, the child feels that the father wants to leave. And so the child, it's magical thinking of a child, so it's crazy thinking. But the child says, well, if I disappear, maybe Dad will stay. Now, that's kind of silly to say that, but
but we do that, yeah.
Who are anorexic, that was the dynamic. And sometimes when you shed this light into the process, then some resolution can happen. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't many other things that you do with people that are anorexic, chemical things that need to be done, and so on. Mm-hmm. Another example, say, for instance, is headaches. Hellinger often found that people that have really bad headaches have pent-up love that's unexpressed. So he found that when people have really bad headaches, he tries to find out who in the family system held back their love from someone.
Fascinating.
And when that person is allowed to see the love flow, which can happen in the constellation, then the headaches can go away.
Well, you've spoken so much about love during some of these explanations. What's love got to do with it?
It's all about love. In a way, everything is love. Of course, we know this, but a constellation is, well, if you think about the bond that an infant has to its parents is a bond. The parents give love perfectly. They give life, love. They give it perfectly. Her mother got from her mother, or your father got from his father. So the job of a parent is a job of perfection. Unfortunately, imperfect people get called upon to do this perfect job. But the gift of life is perfect.
Exactly.
So the child takes this life in a receptive state as an infant and forms this bond of unconditional love to mother and father. The problem from the child's perspective is that it's not a conscious love, it's a blind love. There's no ego there. There was no Dale there when I was born. Mm-hmm. I was just my parents. Right. So I took them in as they were 100% without any filter. And so the child will die for the parents. That's how strong that love is. And as a matter of fact, when you get into times that the child is saying is, I would rather die than lose you, Mom.
Oh, I see.
It's kind of like a soapy story.
I remember that movie with Meryl Streep, yes.
Which child do you take and which one do you give?
Yes. Oh.
Well, we have that same experience. We say, do I lose my liver or do I lose the feeling of connection to my mother? And the love